Okay, so I am in a certain situation. I've been in for a long time. My life has been my life got put on hold about 20 years ago, and it stayed on hold, so it just stopped. And so I've been in a total mess this whole time, and um, you know, for some unknown reason, in the last couple years, the world caught up to me. Um, they're still not as bad off as I am, but and of course my situation is complicated by everything everybody else went in. But you know, it's difficult for me now with my situation to talk to people because when I talk about something or I try to explain my situation, just not asking for any help or anything like that, I just say what's going on. I get people trying to give me, unsolicited advice, which nobody ever likes unsolicited advice. But in my situation, it's bad because I've exhausted so many possibilities. I've thought through things so much that in the end, what ends up happening is I just end up getting really angry and really upset because it's like if it was that simple, I would have done these things. Or if my life wasn't this way, then yeah, sure, that makes sense. And my thing is, it's like the level of thinking that I'm at compared to where the average person who's life is somewhat stable is at is totally different. It's just that I've been through so much and I've dealt with this situation in my life being crap for so long that I'm down here and my worries aren't the same as theirs because when you're not down here, you can't imagine the situation that somebody's in, what they've gone through, what's in their head. So what's in my head and what's in the average person's head isn't the same because our fears aren't the same. The kind of fears that they would have, I probably had 20 years ago, before I got into any of this mess. But at this point in time, or not just now, one of my major fears in life would be to lose my freedom, because to me freedom is the whole thing. It's about being free. That's the freedom to speak and think and be who you want to be. And so I mean, I'm a Sagittarius, that's the whole thing. Freedom is supposed to be your whole thing, and it is for me. So when you lose everything else, or you don't have a status, or you don't have a place in the world and stuff like that, as long as you're still free to some degree, because without money, of course, you're not really free. I don't have that, but there's freedom within that, and that's where I have lived, and in my head, and just all of the different ways. You could get arrested, you could go to jail, you could have some, I don't know, some spouse or partner who tries to control you and things like that. These are the kind of things that under normal circumstances we worried about. But at this point in time, my fear is not just about my own freedom, it's about freedom in general, that it won't be my life that causes me to not be free to think and breathe and be who I am. It's that there's a movement, it seems to me, to take away freedoms for people. So when I'm confronted with other people and they want me to worry about practical matters, and don't get me wrong, I don't want things to get worse than they are, but it's very likely my mind has been beyond that, worried more about freedom, losing freedom, having freedom cease to exist. That's why I make the videos about what I do, because it's one thing to, not have somewhere to live, not have a job, not have money. And I'm not saying anybody wants that. But, for me, you can have all those things, and then if you're not free, what's the point, So, right now, when I'm dealing with people, and people, maybe they're worried about getting sick, or they're worried about, you know, I totally understand that. But to assume that I'm thinking the way you are, or my concerns are the same as yours, and then just start giving me advice because of what you would do in my situation, is like, I've been in a situation for so long, my head is somewhere else. And then what happens is when people do this to me, it really drags me down and it breaks me down. And it makes me feel really bad. Because I don't want to be triggered into having fears that I've tried to set aside a long time ago. I tried to just live my life on a day-to-day basis. You know, hope something happens. But I know the amount of effort I put in this life to have it come to nothing. You know, in terms of more practical concerns, that doesn't work out for me. You know, and I know that sometimes me taking action, if I was worried about something, has made it worse. So to act through fear, to me, is not a way I want to go. Does that mean sometimes you might miss and you should have done something? Sure. But I try so hard, not just now, but I've been trying for years to, you know, not make fear a motivator. Because in the end, anything can happen to anybody at any time. That when I see stuff like what happened in Texas to people, they were fine, they weren't doing the wrong thing, and all of a sudden, some people just died and froze to death, and they didn't do anything wrong. You know, they had money in the bank. They had, you know, it was just you never know what's going to happen. So you have to just try to be as true to yourself on a day-to-day basis. There are times when, you know, people seem to have everything, and then they have a car accident or a plane crash or something, and then everything is topsy-turvy. They may have done all the right things. They may have had a 401k. They may have had money in the bank. They may have had money sewn into their mattress, you know, just to be prepared for all that stuff. And then something happens that you could not have foreseen. I always think of, like, you know how I already talked about how people don't like fat people. People want everybody to be healthy, have perfect teeth, all this stuff. I'm none of these things. But when somebody who had it all together perishes, I'm always like, well, you know, it's interesting because they had their shit together and I didn't, and I'm still here somehow. And I didn't compromise who I am. I didn't sell myself out. I didn't react through fear. And even though I don't have anything can go wrong at any time. I know that, and I live in that. And it's scary sometimes, but life is always scary. And, you know, there are people, like I was going to bring up, the guy who made the Atkins diet. You know, people want to go on diet, they want to be thin, they want to be healthy. The guy who made the Atkins diet, I think he died because he slipped on ice and cracked his head. You know, that's one of those things. You know, people can do everything right. They can slip in the shower. You know, you can accidentally, some weird freak accidents happen to people. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be cautious and stuff like that if that's your thing. But, you know, everybody doesn't think the same way. Everybody hasn't been through the same stuff. So for me, it really shakes me up when, yeah, of course I have things I'm afraid of. Of course things can go wrong. You know, I'm at a certain point where, yeah, everything can go to hell very quickly. But the more I think about it, I'm going to make myself sick. I'm going to, you know, like I said, act out of fear, which will probably make me make a mistake. When I don't know what to do, to me, I've learned in my old age to just not do anything because you tend to make it worse. So I have a whole way of thinking, and I have a whole, and if, you know, and I have a whole lifetime of experience that tells me all the times I knocked myself out trying to do something and it didn't turn out, you know, and I'm the only person who knows my whole circumstance and who knows my whole life. So when somebody comes and you're already worried about something else or something's going wrong and you're nervous that day, and then somebody sneaks in there and starts giving you unsolicited advice because of what happened to their mom or what they would do, and sometimes it's somebody you don't know, but sometimes it's somebody you know, and you've explained to them where your head's at, And you're like, my head's in survival mode, and you want me to think of like planning for the future. Up until September, I was trying to come up with some kinds of plans for the future, but every step of the way, boom, 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 I ended up being wrong, having the wrong information, being held back by circumstances that have to do with the lockdown, circumstances that have to do with law stuff that I had no idea of, that the lawyer I was working with just neglected to tell me, you know. And every time I thought I knew what was going on and I tried to make a plan, I got the door slammed in my face and I had to let go and let God, you know. And there's been so many times, even before the pandemic in the last year and a half, where I didn't even know if I was going to have money to, you know, buy bare necessities the next week, you know. And I've been through that for the last year and a half, and I've tried to just relinquish control over it because I don't have any, you know. And I'm not trying to be super religious, but it's kind of true, at least in my life. It's shown me that you have no idea. The thing you're freaking out about today, you're ready to jump off a bridge. 2 weeks from now, you're going to be worried about something else. You're going to totally forget that thing that happened. Then there's going to be a crisis over here, a crisis over there. You're spinning plates and stuff like that. It's like, let the plates fall. You're going to kill yourself with anxiety and stuff like that. And then what's going to happen? The plates are going to break anyway. You can knock yourself out, breaking all the plates. I mean, trying to keep the plates from breaking. But in the end, some of us, I mean, there are other people who, when they look back in their life, they see all the times they did something and it panned out. And they see all the times that they did this and, you know, they got a better job, or they were able to buy a better house, or they were able to increase their status. And they look at somebody like me saying what I'm saying now, and they think I'm stupid or I'm an idiot, or if I had just done what they did, I would have the same kind of life as them. I don't believe that. I don't believe that anybody's life can be judged based on what you did. I don't believe anybody should ever look at another human being and say, well, if you did what I did, you know, you'd be okay, so why don't you either listen to me, or why didn't you do what I done? I have no sympathy for you. There's a lot of people like that, and that's why I feel like I'm so far removed from that kind of thinking, where I think that everything I did or didn't do was what other people should do, or everything will work out the same for all kinds of people. So, you know, it just goes back to, like I said, our fears are like, fear is a great motivator, unfortunately. And like I said, we all have different fears. And in the end, I know, yeah, maybe another person would be doing certain things that I'm not doing, because for whatever reason, my whole focus right now is on the outside world and the way freedom's going to be taken away. Like if somebody wants me to plan where I'm going to be in a year, I don't know how I'm supposed to do that when there's no way in hell I want to get a vaccine. They're going to start making people required to have a vaccine to travel, to do anything else. So for me to even worry about, will I have money to travel? Will I be able to do this and that? It's like, that's not the only thing. So I can knock myself out trying to plan for a future that I don't understand. I don't know what's coming. I mean, the last couple of years, or the last year definitely, have taught me that none of us know. And it's not because of something mystical is going to happen. We don't know what our government's going to do. We don't know. I mean, when I woke up yesterday, I didn't think, you know, our country was going to be bombing anybody else, but they did. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we can't plan for, unlike a couple years ago, because now we're in this crazy thing where all of a sudden, you know, the government might walk out and say, okay, all the kids are going back to school next week. I mean, I don't have kids, but when they do that, I think of the parents and the kids, and I'm like, how can you just flip a switch and be like, okay, your whole life's changing again. It's changing back to normal, but it's not. And, you know, so how could anybody have planned for that when they don't know? When a governor or somebody, you just gotta roll with it. You gotta do everything you can to try to ride the waves, because you never know. just in general, you never know. But especially now when there's so many people doing so many things, they change the rules on you where you think you have it figured out. And okay, if I just do this until this date, then I'll be all right and I can do that. I said that to myself so many times, but they changed the rules on me. And sometimes it was devastating because there was a date of September 2nd last year where I had all my eggs and my head eggs in one basket, thinking if I just get to September 2nd, if I get past this point, I will be able to then plan and figure out everything I'm going to do, and I don't have a big chance. But and then what happened? I found out 2 days before that that date that I've been waiting to get to all that time had been extended. There had been time tacked onto it 3 times by the state of Massachusetts, and I didn't know. So all that time I had my head focused. For a whole year I had my head focused on September 2nd. And then come to find out, I wasn't going to be able to move forward like I thought I would until right before Christmas. 3 months and more later. And that did something to my brain. It blew a little piece out. And I'm like, I have to completely give up. And it's been hard for me to think. It's been hard for me to figure out anything. And the world keeps getting weirder and stranger. We went through all this stuff with the election. We went through the insurrection. All this stuff. And then the world keeps trucking. Sort of. But then there's all this other stuff going on. And it's like, how are you supposed to navigate this if you're even trying? So yes, my life may fall apart. And I may end up, in the middle of the woods somewhere, and people may look at me and say, well, why didn't she do this and why didn't she do that? And that'll hurt my feelings. But I just feel like I know in my core that I have so little actual control over my life. I wish I had more. I wish it was that simple, But for whatever reason, a lot of stuff that's happened to me, somebody else has had the reins. And I've heard about, I watch all the Fruity videos about giving your power away, and I'm like, what day did I do that on? I think just being born did that to me. And I've tried to think of ways to do something for myself. They all end up being dead ends. And I understand anybody who thinks I'm wrong or I'm horrible and stuff like that, but like I said, my fears aren't your own. Other people they'll become drug dealers. They'll do things to have money to protect themselves, and those things will harm other people. I wouldn't become a pharmacist. I wouldn't become I wouldn't have a liquor store. I wouldn't want to do anything. Now, I'm not judging those people. I personally would have an issue with it because I personally would feel like that's doing harm. I wouldn't want to harm anybody else to have monetary gain. I know the world is made of money. I understand that, but me and money never got along. I mean, I kind of hate money. It hates me right back. But I've never wanted to compromise my ideals. So if that means getting a vaccine, or it means, agreeing with political parties that I don't want to, if it means lying about or saying the things I need to say in order to have money. I've never done that, and I don't want to over here at 0 hour when we're up against it and the world's kind of crumbling, and maybe I'm a fool and maybe I'm an idiot and maybe people should kick me and spit on me when they see me in the street, but I believe there's more to a person than their job title and how much money they have in the bank or what their credit score is. And I know the world is not like that, and thinking my way does end up making you a bum, and You know, maybe I'm turning into Jules from Pulp Fiction, and I'm gonna walk the earth like Kane in Kung Fu until God puts me where He wants me to be. Because God's done a lot of moving me around, not location wise, but mentally and emotionally, and just my life's been about. It's been hectic for a long time. Always running after things, always trying to just stay afloat. I'm tired. I'm really tired. I wish it were as easy as people want it to be, but in the end, that's why I don't talk to many people, because they don't even listen to me anyway. So our fears aren't the same, and I do everything I can to not have any fears, or to try to ignore them as best I can, because it doesn't do anything for anybody.